with our guest at this time, the Hall of Famer, the living legend, the often imitated, never duplicated, the inimitable, the one and only Eazy-E, Eric Bischoff. There he is, my guy. Hello, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing great. Coming to you from the Billings Logan International Airport in Billings, Montana.
My God, thank you for doing this. I know it's not ideal. Usually I see you in the familiar sort of wooden cave setup, you and Conrad Thompson. So I hope this isn't an inconvenience. I did watch your post-Survivor Series show, and you talked about the limo coming to get you and that your neighbors would not be too familiar with a limo coming to your house and being in the neighborhood. Did that happen this morning to take you to the airport?
No, they sent a Suburban. I was really hoping for a big stretch, gaudy looking, like something like a 1988 Cadillac limo, something just gaudy looking. But no, they sent a nice Suburban.
Okay. Well, that should do. What's crazy about this, Eric, and thank you so much for coming on. And also, if I may, thank you for some kind words that you've said about myself and what we're doing here on social media. It really does mean a lot and somewhat surreal, if I'm being honest. When we booked this through MLW, it was great. I was very excited to have you on. And then all of a sudden, I'm on social media and I see you pop up on NXT. And I believe you're on your way to NXT in Orlando tomorrow. I had no idea, so somewhat fortuitous for us. And so before we do get to the MLW deal, could I ask, how did the whole NXT appearance come about?
Really, both phone calls came in just about the same time. It was ironic. And it was just a simple call. I think WWE's got, there's another project I'll be working on Wednesday for the network. Or Peacock. So I think because I'm going to be there anyway in Orlando working on that. And oh, by the way, there's a live show on Tuesday. Hey, let's just get him in here and make him a part of the NXT show. So I think that's the reason it came together. Efficiency more than anything, and a good opportunity. I've never been a part of NXT. So this is a first for me and for the audience.
Is that a one shot as well, or a potential for more appearances?
Dude, you should know by now I'm unemployable, right? Like, people don't mind bringing me in for a night, but you watch, you won't see me again for 6 months. Like a little bit of me goes a long way.
Why is that?
Oh, I'm just kidding. But seriously though, I think I'm kind of, I'm a little bit outside the demo, just a bit, and yeah, there's some name value there, and people still remember the Monday Night Wars and the legacy that created, and it has some value, but realistically, it's limited. And if I get an opportunity to do things like this, a couple times a year, it's that's all I can ask for. I'm grateful for that.
There's no, and actually that is the name of your sequel book, right? Grateful, I believe, which I read and enjoyed, and kind of felt like you were closing the book on being a regular on TV as far as wrestling is concerned. Does that itch ever come up? Do you ever say to your wife, like, it would be nice to be on the road and travel 52 weeks and all that stuff?
I'd rather chew off my leg. No. Look, part of it is obviously, I've just gotten older and I've gotten very comfortable. I love where I live. I live in a beautiful, beautiful part of the United States. It's been my dream my whole life to live here, and now I am. So it's tough for me to leave. I don't enjoy it. And travel has just gotten so much more difficult for everybody. Mm-hmm. And between those two things, I'm good. Every couple times a year, I don't mind traveling, but 52 weeks a year, like I said, I'd rather chew off my leg.
Regarding NXT, there was a moment where I think some fans thought that whatever Triple H and Shawn Michaels had built was getting killed, and now it feels like they've made a total comeback where it's actually a valued sort of part of the programming for the week for WWE, and it doesn't feel like something that is being killed off. Do you share that sentiment? Is it something that you keep up with and enjoy?
I don't keep up with it. And I see a lot. I watch it much like I watch wrestling in general, more for the business of the wrestling business than for the wrestling matches of the wrestling business. Meaning, I'm really curious to see how NXT develops as a legitimate training ground, factory, if you will, for future talent. And what I'm seeing, I've been hearing that theory for so long, going all the way back to when I first got to WCW, and guys like Ole Anderson and Ric Flair and others, and Dusty Rhodes, would be lamenting the fact that that sorry, lady, just trying to bring me some more coffee.
No problem.
Lamenting the fact that there's no way for talent to learn because everything had become so television driven that there's no way for them to get the experience. Well, NXT has provided that, both in terms of a sophisticated training facility and also giving talent the opportunity to learn their craft in front of a live television audience. Because there's only so much you can learn in a training facility. No matter how hard you work and how good the instructors are, your teachers are, your coaches, whatever it may be, there's only so much you can learn until you actually get out in front of people and start applying what you've learned and learning how to control and pace the audience's reaction to what you're doing. And to see NXT reach the level that it has and be able to provide that foundation for guys like, oh, I don't know, Bron Breakker. Let's just talk about that guy for a second. I think it's reaching all of its goals from my perspective.
They seem to be taking one step further in that regard, and it's instituting this WWE ID program. Do you like this idea? Do you think this will be effective?
I love the idea. I am very interested in the independent side of things. I think there's not only a great opportunity business-wise, I think there's a great opportunity for young talent to really, think about it. When it comes to the NFL, we all know where NFL players come from, right? They come from college.
Yeah.
We all know where college players come from. They come from high school. We all know where the high school players come from. They come from the Bantam leagues or whatever midget football organizations exist for 5-year-olds and up. But where do professional wrestlers come from? There's not a sophisticated kind of development ground outside of WWE or TNA or AEW, right? There's the independent scene, but it's not very sophisticated. It's not very organized. It's not very structured. So you don't get quite as much out of it as you possibly could. But I think what WWE is doing, I don't understand. I'm not familiar with their business model or what they're attempting to do. But from the outside looking in, I think they're making a really good move, and I think it'll benefit everybody.
Okay, so that's the NXT story. The big one, of course, is MLW One Shot on Thursday here in New York in Queens. You can get tickets, eventbrite.com, Melrose Ballroom. You can watch it on YouTube. I do believe this is your introduction to the MLW world. How did this all come about for you?
Very spontaneously. It occurred on a phone call with Paul Walter Hauser. And it was fun. And it's everything that I enjoy. I love the spontaneity of things. I love things to feel organic as possible. And that's how this all came together. Court and I have spoken probably 2, 3, 4 times over the last couple of years. And there's always been a conflict either on my end or their end in terms of scheduling. This time, the scheduling I was wide open. It came up in a kind of a spontaneous, fun way. And it just sounds like a great time.
How do you feel they fit into that ecosystem with the TNAs, the AEWs, the New Japans, the WWEs, of course? Where does MLW, in your opinion, fit into all of that?
Hard for me to say. I don't know enough about MLW, to be honest, to give much of an opinion on that. Although I do know that it's a good product. I've watched it on YouTube. I'm very familiar with it. The production values are great. The talent involved is strong. Court's got WWE, storytelling experience, writing experience. There's some really talented people associated with the product. So I think it has all the potential in the world. And let's be honest, WWE in particular, but also AEW, have proven that from a television perspective, wrestling works. Mm-hmm. It's still one of the most affordable forms of content that a television network or a cable outlet could purchase. From a licensing perspective, relatively speaking, it's inexpensive, and relatively speaking, it over delivers based on that expense. So mathematically, it's still very viable, and MLW is in a strong position to take advantage of that.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. Are you not making a dime off of this appearance?
Well, technically no, but that's because when Court and I first started talking, we started negotiating for the money, and I know this is going to sound goofy, but I'm really doing this for the fun. Court and everybody on his team made this feel like a good time. So I just suggested that rather than negotiate my fees, they just donate whatever it's going to be to Ton Up the Towers.
Respect. Much respect for that. Is this, so it's being billed as Eric Bischoff's One Shot. Is this a one night only for you?
More than likely.
Okay.
Again, going back to the travel thing. But look, anything can happen. I'm a spontaneous person, and I've learned, and I've known this all my life, but it's become even more profound to me as I've gotten older, maybe wiser. Is I love to work hard, but I love to work hard having fun. Meaning, I've learned that no matter how hard you work, if you don't enjoy your work, it's short term. And if you love your work, but you don't really work hard at it, same thing. I want to have a great time working hard. And if that opportunity provides itself, then, all bets are off. I can see myself doing something that I wouldn't have expected. But right now, I'm about as comfortable as a human being could be and blessed. So I'm good, but we'll see. You never know.
I hope you don't mind me saying this, but next year you will be celebrating your 70th birthday, correct?
Correct. I'm about 6 months away.
Yes. So that's something to be very proud of, and I hope you feel the same. Did you ever think 69 and a half, 2024 December, you're making appearances on WWE television, on a big indie show. You're still in demand. You still got you still have it. People still want to be in business with you, still want to see you and work with you. Did you ever think that would be the case?
No. I mean, when I got the job at WCW, I was praying that I just hold on to that gig for 2 years so I could get caught up on my bills and buy a new car. So and look how that turned out.
Yeah.
No, it's weird. Not weird. It's wonderful. It's to be in the position that I'm in, having experienced everything I've experienced, and still at this point in my life, to be able to have an opportunity to go out and perform in front of people means a lot to me. I enjoy the hell out of it. I'm not going to lie. I really enjoy it, and I miss that. So to get these opportunities, whether it's once a year, twice a year, whatever, I'm just nothing but grateful for it. I'm blessed and I know it.
When you're not doing your show 83 weeks, 83weeks.com, your YouTube stuff, or these sort of one shots, how does Eric Bischoff spend his days? What do you do on a regular Monday in Montana?
Well, it's Wyoming, but
Wyoming, excuse me.
Yeah, well, but I travel in and out of Montana.
Sure.
So I've got 3 or 4 other projects that I'm developing. And when I say that, sometimes I'll jump into a project just to learn about it. And sometimes I'll jump into a project because I really think I can develop it and take it to a commercial level. But I'm involved in something right now that I don't want to be, I don't want to be this way, but I can't talk about it too much yet because I'm still developing it. But I'm jumping into a project now that it's in the world of finance, and it's absolutely fascinating to me. And we'll talk more about it later. But it's really consuming almost all of my time right now and my focus. Doing the research. It's about a fraud. I've said too much.
Okay.
You'll be hearing more about it. But I do that. I've got a couple television projects that people have reached out to me to help them develop. And I do that just again to kind of collaborate and get a rush that way. But that's about it, man. I keep myself busy. I got a new grandson, so my wife and I travel a lot, spend time with him.
Congrats. Like I said, I watched your post show on Saturday after Survivor Series, which I enjoyed very much. Always enjoy your content. And I want to push back on one thing, if I may. You said towards the end that the Bloodline has surpassed NWO as the greatest faction in wrestling history. And
no, I said greatest storyline.
Storyline.
There's a difference.
Okay, fair enough. And I'd love to ask about that. My apologies. I want to get it right. And I do believe I got this part right. You said that it's been about like 2 years since they've surpassed it, right? And that part kind of blew me away. 2 years. I mean, it's a 4-year story if we want to count like Roman's return at SummerSlam in 2020 as the beginning of it all with Paul Heyman. I felt, and not because I want you to give yourself the old Barry Horowitz, but I found that to be very surprising. And so could we expand on that? Why do you think it's the best storyline in wrestling history, surpassing the NWO?
Well, let me first kind of talk about the distinction. I think no storyline, no faction, in my opinion, will have the impact that the NWO storyline had. And that has a lot to do with timing, the state of the business at the time, the evolution of the business. Just the timing was perfect for the NWO. And it's still one of the top selling merchandise items in the WWE catalog. So there's that. I think the quality of the Bloodline storyline, however, just in terms of its discipline, the arc that it's created, the benefits that have resulted from it in terms of talent. I mean, just look at, we've kind of already forgotten a little bit, but look at Sami Zayn. Look what that storyline did for Sami. Look what it's done for so many people, that it's elevated from literally out of nowhere or kind of mid-card, kind of mid-roster status into superstars. The amount of money that's been generated from that storyline. I just don't think you can look at it as a piece of business and think of anything that's even close in terms of the Bloodline storyline from a storyline point of view. From an impact point of view, I don't think Bloodline will ever come close to the NWO. But they're two different things.
And so could I ask the distinction there, because gate and ticket sales and all that stuff higher than ever. Maybe the ratings aren't what they were in the 90s, but isn't that the greatest sort of indicator of what kind of impact a story is having?
It's one. I don't think there's any one indicator that trumps all others, but certainly that's a big one, right? How much money did it generate? But I think with the NWO will certainly not generate the amount of money that the Bloodline storyline has. It just won't. But I think when I talk about the impact of the derivatives of factions, look at the number of factions that have tried to recreate the NWO story. There's a lot, including in WWE. That was a horrible disaster. There's been so many. It's just left a cultural mark on professional wrestling in a way that no other faction can and will, because of the timing of it all.
There is a dangerous game to play, and I was wondering if you were feeling the same. Like, once they start introducing OG Bloodline and new Bloodline, it started to remind me a bit of Wolfpack and the black and white, and now you start to bring in new faces and it starts to get splintered off. That's a dangerous game, right? Would you not say that once you dilute it, it starts to muddy the waters a little bit?
It can. Don't we know for sure?
Yeah.
It certainly can. But again, that's where, when I described the Bloodline a few moments ago as being disciplined, that's kind of what I mean. Everybody involved in that story knows very well, and all they have to do is think back to the NWO and how that became so diluted because it lacked discipline. You can learn from that experience if you're smart, and they are smart, and they're learning from it. And it's how you manage the growth and expansion. It's not whether you should or you shouldn't. It's you almost have to keep the storyline alive. It's required, whatever it is. If it's a drama series and it's been going on for years and years and years, you're adding new characters to keep it fresh. You have to do that. But if you do it in a deliberate, structured, and disciplined way, it can be the gift that keeps on giving. And that's what it's been for 4 years. When
I think of discipline and the secret sauce, I feel like it's all Paul Heyman. If Heyman's not there, it's a big problem. Do you feel like he's the one that, as long as he's around and part of this and sort of, pulling the strings, they'll be okay?
I have a lot of confidence in Paul Heyman. I think he's an amazing producer and creator. And I would agree with that. I don't think there's any limitation to what Paul's capable of, creatively speaking.
Based on what you saw on Saturday, any concern that it will get diluted, that there are too many different twists and turns, or do you feel like they're still on the correct path?
Very much on a correct path. I'm not worried about it at all. Again, they've demonstrated for 4 years now discipline and nuance. I'm not worried about it at all.
If you had the pencil, what's the main event of WrestleMania 41? Based on where we're at right now.
Oh God, I hate when people ask me these questions.
Why?
Because I have to sit down and think about it for about an hour.
Really? I feel like there's only a few different possibilities.
Yeah, but I think about things differently.
Okay.
When I'm asked a question like that, I kind of reverse engineer things and look for something that nobody expected, as opposed to the obvious. So.
Wow.
Next time we talk, I'll have an answer for you. We just have to talk before WrestleMania.
That's fair. It's I guess part of me was trying to figure out how the mind of the genius works.
Well, I just give you a little bit of a glimpse. What does everybody expect WrestleMania to be? What do most people expect WrestleMania to be? I would look for something different.
Okay. Could I ask, your battles on social media are very entertaining at times. Do they ever get tiresome for you? I mean, it's sometimes it's AEW and their fans and Tony, and then it's Meltzer. You're out there, in the trenches, like swinging haymakers. Does it ever get tiresome for Eric Bischoff?
I get bored because people that I'm usually arguing with are pretty stupid. And it's not fun arguing with stupid people. I prefer to argue and get into kind of a back and forth with somebody that actually challenges me on an intellectual level or is just intellectually curious by nature. And you don't get a lot of that in social media. You get some pretty stupid people for the most part. As far as Dave Meltzer goes, I just, I just got to do that every day. He did well, partially because he makes it so easy. He's low hanging fruit. So if I'm in a bad mood, like if I'm really pissed off, I'll just fire off a couple of rounds at Meltzer because he makes it so easy.
Have you ever had a good relationship with him? Like, did you ever talk? And, I know the stories of Vince and him, full disclosure, we used to work together. I've always had a fine relationship with him. Did you guys ever, get along?
I tolerated him for a few minutes, so to speak. We had a guy working with me by the name of Zane Bresloff, and Zane was friends with Dave Meltzer. And Zane worked for me, and he talked me into, hey, at least try, talk to Dave. And I thought, you know what, maybe if I give him access and he won't have to guess or make shit up as much as he does. So I gave him access and had some conversations with him, and he kept creating, making things up and lying and distorting and, lying by omission and all the things that Dave has been doing now since 1987. So I just said, heck with it. It's not worth my time.
Okay. What about your take on the current state of All Elite Wrestling? What do you think? How are they doing right now?
Yeah, well, they're horrible. Come on. It's just, I've given up. I used to get really frustrated with them because I actually hate seeing people screw up good opportunities. I know what that feels like, and I know how hard good opportunities are to come by. So when you see somebody just shooting themselves in the foot day after day, week after week, in every possible way, it's frustrating for me, and I would vent that frustration. Now it's just like, yeah, whatever. It is what it is. There's no hope for them. Nothing's going to turn that company around. There's no light bulb going to go off in anybody's head and all of a sudden realize, oh, this is how we actually get people to watch TV. They have no idea what they're doing, and they're too stubborn to learn.
There's no chance for a story to turn like the way NWO turned WCW around. There's no chance of any of that.
Not there.
Why not?
Because there's nobody there that knows how to tell the story. There's nobody there that knows what a story actually is. It's like, I use this analogy sometimes because it's easy to understand. Boy meets girl, boy gets girl. Boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. That's a story. It's not very compelling. Nobody cares. But if Shakespeare gets a hold of it, it's kind of like a version of Romeo and Juliet. So yeah, you'll hear the fan base say, "Oh, there's great story. There's stories." Dave Meltzer says there's the problem with AEW is there's so many stories people can't keep up with them. I kid you not, he said that. And people take him seriously and send him money every month. What the hell? There's the stories, if there are any, are so bad that only the lowest form of wrestling intellect on the planet finds enjoyment in it. Now, you will find some people, and I think this is cool. If you just like the physical presentation of guys flying all over the place and doing all kinds of athletically amazing stuff, and you don't care about story, you don't care about characters, that's your jam. AEW is your jam. And if that's what you like, more power to you, man. I'm glad you found it. It's just not viable for the masses. It's, as Tony calls them, for the sickos. First of all, why would you want to call your fan base sickos? Because the majority of them prefer not to be called that. Just a hint, Tony, just a hint. But Tony's vision for that company, I guess, is to provide content for that percentage of the audience that only cares about high risk, high altitude, fast paced action, and not about story and not about characters.
Do you tune into any of it? Does any of it pique your interest?
Occasionally, if I know, for example, that I'm going to have to cover it for any specific reason, either on my podcast or Wise Choices, my YouTube show, but I can't. I honestly, and I'm not saying this to take shots at them, but I just cannot watch it. I feel dumber by the minute.
Gosh,
as I watch that show.
To boil it down, last thing on them, could I just ask? Tony's father, Shad Khan, is the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is not the GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know Tony has a role in the front office, but ultimately, as far as AEW is concerned, he acts as the GM, right? He's the one making the decisions. He's hiring, firing, booking, all that stuff and more. Do you think that is ultimately the problem? As long as he is the head booker, they will never be able to turn things around.
100%. 100%. And I used to hope, like a year or two ago, I would convince myself that, hey, Tony's a smart guy. He's got great resources. He's got people around him. He'll find the right person to take over that job. But it's become more and more apparent that Tony really wants to be. He wanted to be held up there with Paul Heyman and Vince McMahon and probably Eric Bischoff back in the 90s. He wanted that recognition and validation. And as long as that's what's driving Tony, validation for being the booker as opposed to validation for being the guy smart enough to find a good booker, it'll never change. It'll never change. I know too many people that work there. I hear too much stuff. It is never, ever going to change as long as Tony Khan's in charge.
Last question, and we'll let you go. Just curious, January 6th, WWE debuts Raw on Netflix here in the United States. Worldwide, outside of the U.S., everything's going on Netflix, right? The PLEs, Raw, SmackDown, it's gigantic. I think 80% of the world gets it all on Netflix. What do you think ends up being the ceiling then? Like we were talking about the 90s, right? 10 million or so people at one point are watching on Monday night. Do you think we ever get back? We just saw the numbers for Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. How big of a game changer, in your opinion, do you think Netflix will be for the business?
It's going to be a massive game changer. I have no idea how to predict it. This has never been, there's nothing to compare this to other than the Jake Paul Tyson fight, which, by the way, about 2 days before that fight, I was asked to predict how many people would purchase it. And I think it was a Mayweather fight that had held the record at about 5 million. So I said, it'll probably do a little bit better than that because, Jake Paul, YouTube guy, Mike Tyson, legend. So I'm going to say 7 million, I think I said, maybe 6.
Yeah.
It came in at 60. So I'm not predicting anything other than it's going to be massive.
Looking forward to your return to WWE television tomorrow. Who would have thunk? On NXT, on CW, and then, of course, MLW on Thursday. So, again, tickets available right now at the Melrose Ballroom, Eventbrite.com, and then you can watch it on the MLW YouTube channel. Massive honor to have you on, especially as you're in transit. I know it's not fun to do these sorts of things while you're at the airport, so appreciate you very much, and keep up all the great work. And our good friend Ant Evans, who I know helps you out behind the scenes, also helping us out, says hello. He is the best, and I appreciate all the work he does here. So thank you so much, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Ariel. And thank you, Ant, my Sherpa guidesman, through the valleys and the mountains of YouTube.
Thank you so much. Safe travels, Eric.
See ya.
There he is, the great Eric Bischoff, the legend himself, stopping by from the airport in Billings, Montana. Thanks for watching this video. Hey, before you go, do me a favor, hit that sub button, give us a thumbs up, hit the little bell thingy as well. Leave us a nice comment or two. We appreciate you all very much.